In the land of the Baobab, where the earth was red as fire and the skies stretched endlessly above like a great blue ocean, there was a village named Nyamekye, known far and wide for its brave warriors and wise elders. The people of Nyamekye lived in harmony with the land, drawing strength from the ancient trees and the spirits that whispered through the wind. But despite their strength and wisdom, the villagers lived in constant fear of the Great Shadow, a mysterious force that roamed the savannah, leaving destruction in its wake. No one knew where it came from or what it wanted, but its presence was felt by all. In this village lived a young man named Kwesi. Kwesi was different from the other villagers. He was not a warrior, nor was he particularly strong. But what he lacked in physical prowess, he made up for in his sharp mind and unyielding curiosity. He was the son of Amma, the village healer, and Kwaku, a warrior who had once faced the Great Shadow and returned with a deep scar across his chest, a wound that had never fully healed, both in body and in spirit. From a young age, Kwesi was captivated by the stories of the Great Shadow. He would sit by the fire, listening intently as the elders spoke of the creature's terrifying power, the way it moved through the land like a silent storm, leaving behind nothing but fear and sorrow. But unlike the others, Kwesi was not content with merely fearing the shadow. He wanted to understand it, to uncover the secrets it held. He believed that if he could understand the nature of the Great Shadow, he could find a way to defeat it and free his village from its terror. One fateful day, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and red, Kwesi approached his father, who was sharpening his spear outside their hut. "Father," Kwesi began, his voice steady but determined, "I wish to seek out the Great Shadow." Kwaku stopped mid-motion, his hand tightening around the spear. He turned to his son, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and anger. "You speak foolishly, Kwesi. The Great Shadow is not something you seek. It is something you avoid. Do not let your curiosity lead you to your death." But Kwesi was undeterred. "Father, all my life, I have heard stories of the Great Shadow, but no one truly knows what it is. We live in fear, but fear alone will not protect us. I believe that if I face the shadow, if I understand it, I can find a way to stop it." Kwaku's face softened, but the worry in his eyes remained. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "My son, there is a thin line between bravery and recklessness. I do not want to lose you to this darkness. But if your heart is set on this path, you must seek the guidance of Nana Ya, the oldest and wisest of the elders. Only she can tell you what you need to know." With his father's reluctant blessing, Kwesi set off to find Nana Ya. She lived on the outskirts of the village in a small hut surrounded by a garden of medicinal herbs and flowers. The villagers often came to her for advice and healing, for it was said that she could see into the hearts of men and women and even speak with the spirits of the ancestors. As Kwesi approached her hut, the air around him seemed to grow thicker, charged with a palpable energy. He knocked on the door and it creaked open almost immediately, as if Nana Ya had been expecting him. "Enter, Kwesi," came her voice, warm yet commanding. "I know why you have come." Kwesi stepped inside, the scent of incense and dried herbs filling his senses. Nana Ya sat on a woven mat, her hair silver like the moon, her eyes sharp and knowing. She gestured for him to sit across from her. "You seek to understand the Great Shadow," she said, her gaze never leaving his. "You are brave, but bravery alone will not protect you. The shadow is more than just a force of destruction. It is a manifestation of the fears and doubts that reside within us all. To face it, you must first face yourself." Kwesi listened intently, his heart pounding in his chest. "But how can I defeat something that is not of this world?" he asked. Nana Ya smiled, a faint, enigmatic smile that only deepened the mystery of her words. "The answer lies within the forest of Anansi. There you will find the tree of truth, guarded by the trickster spider himself. If you can reach the tree and drink from its sap, you will gain the knowledge you seek. But be warned, the journey is perilous, and many who have attempted it have never returned." Kwesi thanked Nana Ya and set off at once, his determination unshaken. The forest of Anansi was said to be a place of illusions and tests, where the weak of heart would lose their way and fall prey to their own fears. But Kwesi knew that he had no choice. If he was to save his village, he had to complete this journey. The forest was dark and dense, the canopy above blocking out the light of the sun. As Kwesi ventured deeper, the sounds of the forest, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and the occasional creak of branches seemed to grow louder, more ominous. Every shadow seemed to move. Every gust of wind seemed to carry whispers of doubt. After hours of walking, Kwesi came across a narrow path that led to a clearing. In the center stood the tree of truth, its trunk wide and ancient, its roots spreading deep into the earth. But as he approached, he saw that the tree was surrounded by thick, sticky webs, Anansi's trap. Before he could think of a way to navigate the webs, a voice called out from above. "Ah, a visitor! How rare!" Kwesi looked up to see Anansi, the trickster spider, perched on a branch, his 8 eyes glinting with mischief. "What brings you to my domain, young one?" Anansi asked, his voice smooth and slippery as oil. "I seek the sap of the tree of truth," Kwesi replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I need its knowledge to defeat the great shadow." Anansi chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down Kwesi's spine. "And why should I allow you to take it? Many have come before you, and none have succeeded. What makes you any different?" Kwesi thought for a moment, then spoke from his heart. "I may not be the strongest or the bravest, but I am willing to face my fears and learn from them. I do not seek to defeat the shadow out of pride or glory, but to protect my village and those I love." Anansi tilted his head, considering Kwesi's words. "Very well," he said after a long pause. "I will allow you to take the sap, but only if you can answer this riddle. What is it that all men carry, but only the wise can see?" Kwesi's mind raced, but then he remembered Nana Ya's words. "The shadow is a manifestation of fears and doubts." "It is fear," he answered, his voice firm. "All men carry fear, but only the wise understand it and do not let it control them." Anansi let out a delighted laugh, his eyes sparkling with approval. "Correct. You may take the sap, young one. But remember, knowledge is a double-edged sword. It can cut both ways." With that, Anansi spun a thread that cleared a path through the webs, allowing Kwesi to approach the tree of truth. He carefully collected some of the sap in a small gourd, feeling a surge of energy and clarity as he did. He thanked Anansi and began his journey back to Nyamekye. When Kwesi returned to the village, he found it in the grip of terror. The great shadow had returned, darker and more powerful than ever. The villagers huddled together, their faces pale with fear. But Kwesi did not falter. He stepped forward, the gourd of sap in his hand, and faced the shadow. As the shadow loomed over him, its form shifting and writhing like a living nightmare, Kwesi drank from the gourd. Instantly, he felt the knowledge of the tree of truth coursing through him. He understood that the shadow was not just an external force, but a reflection of the fears that had taken root in the hearts of the villagers. With this realization, Kwesi did something unexpected. He did not attack the shadow. Instead, he spoke to it, his voice calm and steady. "You are born of our fears, but we will no longer let you control us. We face you now, not with weapons, but with understanding. We acknowledge our fears, but we will not be ruled by them." As he spoke, the shadow began to shrink, its dark form losing shape. The villagers, inspired by Kwesi's courage, began to join in, their voices rising in a chorus of defiance. Together they confronted their fears. And the great shadow, deprived of the fear that sustained it, faded away, leaving nothing but the light of the setting sun. Kwesi had done what no one before him had managed. He had defeated the great shadow not through strength or violence, but through understanding and courage. The village of Nyamekye was free, and Kwesi was hailed as a hero, not just for his bravery, but for his wisdom. From that day on, the story of Kwesi and the great shadow was told throughout the land, a legendary tale of how a young man, guided by curiosity and the desire to protect his people, learned the secret to embracing life's challenges fearlessly. It became a story of hope and inspiration, reminding all who heard it that true courage lies not in the absence of fear, but in the mastery of it. And so, the village of Nyamekye flourished, its people living in harmony with the land and with each other, no longer bound by the shadows of their fears, but standing tall in the light of their courage and resilience.